Hey, it's XO. The idea here is to connect people, and gather. Most of my content is going to be Magic the Gathering related. With that said, this content is not Magic the Gathering related. Earlier in November, they released the trailer for Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Talked to a friend of mine, Connor, and I think something I'm super passionate about. This is one of my favorite movie series. If not, this is probably my favorite movie series. Collectively, 100%. There's perfect trilogies out there, and there's better movies, but the Mission Impossible franchise as a whole, the collective series of movies with Ethan Hunt starring Tom Cruise, love him or hate him, Tom Cruise is an incredible running man, action star. Signs on to great ideas that could have something to do with Scientology, could have something to do with Hollywood elite. Just the ideas behind his movies. Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow, or whatever you want to call that movie, is just awesome concept. So there's a ton of those out there. Vanilla Sky is easily my favorite movie, hands down. Yeah, so we're gonna rank the Mission Impossible movies, and I'm gonna start at the bottom. And to be fair, I will update this when we are fully clear that Tom Cruise has put out his last movie and bowed out of the role. So with that being said, Mission Impossible 8 or Final Reckoning, I'm going to put at the bottom because it hasn't been released, and it's going to allow me the opportunity to tell you that, you know, Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt is perfect casting. Just incredible casting, and Ving Rhames being in all of these movies, whether it was just the tiniest of roles or just couldn't have saved the day without him. I mean, Kojak, Dawn of the Dead, and this guy was in Striptease, to Con Air. Just Ving Rhames is phenomenal, and just this deep voice, strong character that does tech stuff and lets Ethan Hunt do the majority of the physical stuff. It just is awesome, totally awesome. And I'll counter that with Simon Pegg. I've almost never liked Simon Pegg in anything, and it's a style. I just that style of humor is not my style. It complements these movies really well. Simon Pegg is Benji. Cool. He's cool. He adds something to these movies that's needed. It's again, I think if you would have said, "Hey, you casted," yeah, I wouldn't have picked Simon Pegg, and maybe it's better for him. I think the relationship he has with Tom Cruise as a actor, works really well. It translates to the movies. They do a great job on screen, so not that worried about it. Um, so yeah, we'll put number 8 at number 8. So actually, bottom of my list. Just this was the easiest thing to pick because I love this franchise. I hate this movie. Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol is so trash. It's the worst Mission Impossible movie ever. It's they made 3 really great movies with 3 totally different directors. And the fourth movie they said, "Hey, I don't know what was going on in Hollywood, what reason they thought, oh, this is the the base level thought is, hey, we're going to up the ante with, you know, the first movie was a, hey, I'm on a train fighting in a helicopter, and it drops down to the floor, and so here we are 4 movies in, we're gonna blow up the Kremlin, and just all this crazy shit's gonna happen, and just okay, we're going to get a guy who understands how CGI works. So they get Brad Bird. And look, I don't like animated movies. I like Surf's Up with the penguins because it's surfing, and there's Chicken Joe, and I relate to some of the things in that movie. That's it. I am not a Frozen, Moana, and Encanto. Like the music that comes along with some of those Disney movies, phenomenal. I'm gonna be 37. I'm not, I don't have kids. I'm not an animated movie guy. Why they picked Brad Bird to direct Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol? It it was a bad idea, and they made a bad movie. It just the CGI over the top, the sandstorm. It's like making natural disaster the villain, and the fight with the villain is just cars falling down a tower, and the fact that you had Michael Nyquist, like Nyquist, I don't know how I'd say his name, but that actor running and Tom Cruise not being able to catch him, just the whole movie was trash. And every step along the way, go, oh, well, they should have gotten a more physical actor that was more believable, and then they wouldn't have had to do whatever they did in the end, where it was like cars falling and not an actual physical. And they stripped away the protagonist antagonist side of things, and it was just like it was just spectacle. It was, how is Ethan Hunt gonna overcome this spectacle, run through a sandstorm, or I have to lose to win, and I don't know. They went with, it was this athletic machismo without any truly relevant antagonist. I think that's the way I would word that, is there wasn't anything that was super relevant. It was just, there was this world-ending thing. You know, Cobalt is the villain, but like it's just about pushing a button or not pushing a button. Or James Bond's done that a million times, and that was one of the things that Mission Impossible had going for it. Was Mission Impossible was not 007. Like Ethan Hunt is not James Bond. Um, so this movie just took it into that realm. Um, yeah, I can't say enough bad things. Jeremy Renner was in it. Nobody needed Jeremy Renner. Like he's a great actor. Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye, athletic, incredible actor. Didn't need to be in this franchise. Didn't have any business. And here's the thing, Jeremy Renner could have been the antagonist. It would have been incredible. There you go. But just the role they put him in, he's like, oh, I'm gonna be like over here, which this will become relevant later. But like Tom Cruise, really great action actor. You could do that, but you got to make them kind of like butt heads. Like if you were going to put, I don't know, Henry Cavill in a Mission Impossible movie, you'd have to butt heads with Tom Cruise. They achieved that. Jeremy Renner, it's like, oh, I'm on your side, dude. And I don't know, man. It was a bad movie. It was a really bad movie. I'm trying to think. And probably also jaded with the Cobalt actor, Michael Nyquist. He was in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but I feel like Daniel Craig did that role way better, and I don't know. Just, it was a bad movie. They went for spectacle and machismo, and they hired a guy who, Disney stuff, man, just Disney stuff, and this should have never been that. It should have never been that. So that's the bottom. That's the easiest decision I had to make. I'm gonna drink to that. So cheers. I think I think the hardest decision I had to make was what goes above that. So I cannot emphasize enough that if I talked about Final Reckoning, Mission Impossible 8 first, it's just because it's not even out yet. I saw the trailer. The trailer was awesome. It gives like this little sprinkle of, there's going to be some dope shit. This might be the end of the franchise, but hey, we're not giving away too much. Just it also helps that this is like part two of Dead Reckoning. So to say, okay, that's kind of adjacent, and then we're putting Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol at the very bottom. It is a leap up from 7 to 6. So, yeah, just I'm going to say Mission Impossible 6 Fallout. Mission Impossible Fallout is not the worst movie of the franchise, but it's the next worst movie of the franchise. And I think a lot of why I say that is because of marketing and the expectations of the film before it. And, I can go into some stuff later that'll, I don't want to tell you what's number 2 and number 3 and number 1. Um, I just want you to know that Mission Impossible 6 Fallout is one of the worst movies executed through marketing and everything. And the biggest thing for me is they reused the antagonist and they undid a near perfect, if not perfect, ending to the movie before it. And, in doing that, it I'll say this is the movie before this book ended perfectly. So if they were going to do Fallout, this was a great opportunity. This is where they should have brought in Eugene from the first movie, just to, hey, the sins of everything you've done and the fallout, and great idea for a movie, but they dovetailed it from the movie before instead of all of the movies, and it suffers from that because they bring in Angela Bassett, she's awesome. They bring in Henry Cavill, he's awesome, and again, there's a little bit of fumbling where I'm like, okay, when you put him with Ethan Hunt and make him look like a kind of knucklehead, but spoilers. These are gonna have spoilers. He ends up being a villain. But you're using the main villain from the last movie, and so okay, so we have to overcome the main villain from the last movie. We have to overcome Henry Cavill's character. We have to overcome, you know, Angela Bassett isn't a villain. She's an antagonist because she doesn't work for the IMF. She works for the CIA, and they have to convince her that they're not doing wrong so that she becomes on their side. And it just gets so complicated where the movie ends and the movie ends and it gets to a point where like really great like physical fight between Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill is phenomenal. Like that's great. But then there's also the countdown of like a nuclear thing, or we got to hit that. Oh, did we do this here and that there, and our characters are spread apart, and it's we're 6 movies in, we're recycling ideas, the MacGuffin, this and that. This movie suffered from all the successes of all the movies before, and it's just too long, and it ended over and over and over again. Those are the two big things working against it. Is yeah, I'll shut up there because I'm gonna go. I think this is what we do between each one. So, Mission Impossible Fallout, not a bad movie. I definitely think. I mean, once you get invested in the franchise, when they start pumping new blood in, like, hey, check out Angela Bassett. Here's Henry Cavill. Like, see what's going on here. It's great. They're doing a great job. It's just not the best movie by any stretch of the imagination. Also, not the best movie. Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning. And I think I only put that one above because there's so much new blood that is not a Henry Cavill. Like, oh, this was Superman, like people know who Henry Cavill is in a big way. He's a leading man, and now he's second fiddle to Tom Cruise, and that's okay. They did a great job with it. But I think Dead Reckoning did a better job. They brought in Palm from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Mantis is Paris in this as a villain. She's great. They bring in Vanessa Kirby. Vanessa Kirby was in previous film, but the callback of her being White Widow and she's Max's son from the or Max's daughter, sorry, from the original. just the Vanessa Kirby, Palm, the actor that plays Gabriel. I didn't know his name. I didn't know what else he was in. These are like unknown, not unknown, but not leading actor and actresses. Like these are actors and actresses, people who are acting who do a phenomenal job and they bring something new, and they're great at what they bring, and they bring back Eugene Kittredge, and they do all this great storytelling. The villain being AI based is really unique. Um, yeah, I don't know. I, I don't know. I think I'm also super inclined to say that Gabriel is the main antagonist working with this AI source. It, it it's benefiting. I haven't seen the last film, of course, but it's benefiting from what I just said about the last movie about reusing a character. This benefits from the marketing of it was Dead Reckoning Part One, and they scrapped that because not a lot of people went to see it. But Dead Reckoning benefited from the idea that you knew you were gonna get tied into some of this and continue, like Ilsa Faust, like what's going on with her, Gabriel, what's going on with him. They bring in a new character who's kind of like a heist pickpocket person, and you're okay. Like I'm a little invested in all these things. And so when the movie ends and it's kind of like when you tie your shoe and it's a little loose, and you're like, yeah, 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 that'll get me to here, and then I'll have more time. You knew it wasn't going to end, but it was a really, really satisfying ending. And it's a million questions up in the air. I would compare this movie the most to, now that we're many movies in, it's very much like the ending of a three, four, five Harry Potter book where you're like, oh wow, like you answered four questions and you left me with seven. So you know that they're gonna do some stuff now, and you know how it has to end, but you don't know what they're gonna have to do to get there. So I I just think this one suffers from, we're near the end. This one's the one that I think would change the most after the last one comes out. Is either the last one's going to come out and I'm going to go, oh wow, yeah, I was super right about Dead Reckoning. In fact, Dead Reckoning's going to go down underneath Fallout, or Final Reckoning's going to come out and we're going to, oh, okay, yeah, like this one's great, or Dead Reckoning's better because of the way they paid this off. I just, it's, it's not. Dead Reckoning is when they pulled we're filming both these movies around the same time and we're gonna end this franchise. That's I think what they were planning on doing, or they were gonna do this two movies and part one, part two, and then make Final Reckoning. Like there's weird talks out there, and I try not to read into things in the Hollywood ecosystem, but there's conversations that the studio and Tom Cruise are a little argumentative about ending the franchise. I think he thought we were gonna have one more. They're just gonna have to put that stuff into this movie. It's gonna be a long movie. I think a lot of people will have the grace to say, "Hey, look, it's not perfect, but this is the way we're going out," and it's okay because I will tell you when we get to a perfect Mission Impossible movie, it's not gonna be Final Reckoning. So, Dead Reckoning, we had Final Reckoning, Ghost Protocol, Fallout, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning. So we're like, that's like halfway. Now I'm going to tell you about the best four Mission Impossible movies. And the fourth best Mission Impossible movie is Mission Impossible 2. Mission Impossible 2, I mean, you think of Ethan Hunt and he outsmarts the bad guy and he runs. And, if he has to get into a place, he finds a way through the roof. Those are three things that are just fundamental to Ethan Hunt. He also knows how to ride a motorcycle, and it's badass. And that's one of the best things about this movie is, for what I hated about Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible 2 does have machismo, and it does have over the top spectacle, but it's all grounded in the physicality that Tom Cruise brings to the screen. So there's nothing overly outlandish, overly CGI. I mean, there is, the iconic like two motorcycles just crashing into each other and two guys like fighting down in the dirt. But that's believable. Like that's not, I mean, it's not like they get up and they go, "Oh, hey, I'm 100% and I'm going to, that's how the movie ends. They fight and it's badass. Like I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Douglas Scott, way underrated, way underrated actor. Douglas Scott, Deep Impact. I know he was in Desperate Housewives. I just did maybe for a while, maybe for most of it. I don't know. He was in that show. So like he's this charming, and that was the whole thing. Was Mission Impossible 1, you had John Boyd. Mission Impossible 2, you have like the kind of like they do it in like Goldeneye. You have like this is the other half of the and protagonist is, here's this antagonist that's smarmy and charming and clever, and he gets the job done, and he's got the physicality, and he's maybe a little more Eddie Haskell, like if anybody gets that reference. He's like more smarmy than Tom Cruise, or more smarmy than Ethan Hunt as a character. But he's the foil for the protagonist. He just happens to be the villain. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like that guy was almost James Bond. That's relevant. It was Pierce Brosnan, Die Another Day, and they were gonna pass off the franchise, and Douglas Scott was gonna be the next James Bond. It was gonna happen. It didn't happen. They went another direction. It was great. I'm not disappointed, but this guy is like up there on that level where he could have been that, and I don't know. He's Look him up, look him up. I think Crime is a series. He's just underrated, super underrated. And then you have like Thandie Newton, who I also think is underrated, but Thandie Newton's got a claim. Crash. You had Rock and Roller or Rock and Rolla by Guy Ritchie's, really great actress. I think she was in The Truth About Charlie, which I just won't say more about that if I'm right. And Thandie Newton was in The Truth About Charlie. You should go watch that movie. Like I used to be really into like just buying DVDs and not knowing much about it. It's like, oh, this is a remake of whatever. Or, hey, this is something I found in the $3 bin. Like just The Truth About Charlie is a cool movie with Thandie Newton. Um, yeah, I can't think of a whole lot more. I mean, if I didn't say it, John Woo, great supporting cast. Um, Interesting plot because it was so different from Mission Impossible 1. I mean, Mission Impossible 1, they did such a great job of saying this was this movie. And now here we are years later, which not all of these movies do that. A lot of these movies dovetail into the next thing. There could easily be a whole series of movies or a television series about what happens between Mission Impossible 1 and 2 with Ethan Hunt. Because by the time 2 rolls around, he's like one of the best agents. And the first one was about him surviving a mole hunt. So it was kind of like this guy was athletic, smart, and lucky. He's really lucky. And the second movie is this guy's really athletic and he's really smart. And I don't know if he's lucky, but he's the best agent we have. So, you know, um, something I'm probably not going to bring up a lot is that Lawrence Fishburne and Alec Baldwin are in some of these movies. Um, they're good, and I kind of like that the way you have M in James Bond movies, you have like the director of something that is like kind of bossy to Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise is like, yeah, but I'm with the impossible missions. We don't answer to anybody. So um, yeah, those are all relevant things, I guess. But yeah, Mission Impossible 2, fourth best Mission Impossible movie. So now here's where you're going to start going, okay, XO, be real. If Mission Impossible 2 is not in your top three, what's the order of the top three? Like, what are the top three best? And I know this is where you start pissing people off because I'm pretty sure up until Mission Impossible 2, all the rest of them, I don't think anybody's going to argue with me that Dead Reckoning, Fallout, Ghost Protocol belong at the bottom. Like, if you loved one of those movies and you think it should have been higher up, you're just wrong. Like, you're really wrong. If you think Mission Impossible 2 is better than number 4, I could probably get on board with whatever your argument is. And I'll hear it, and I love you, but it's number 4. So, the third best Mission Impossible movie is Mission Impossible 3. It is, such a great, just, I said this earlier when I said, oh, we brought in Brad Bird. Like, why did we bring in Brad Bird? Like, bringing John Woo to direct the second one was just doubling down on the action and going, hey, we're looking back at the series and, okay, how do we turn that into a film? There's a lot of action. Okay, like, you picked your poison and it was great. And when you picked Brad Bird, it was like, that's not great. Mission Impossible 3, they picked J.J. Abrams, and that's a whole other conversation, what J.J. Abrams brings to the table. But for this film series, awesome choice, because so there's two things that J.J. Abrams did that I'm like, oh my god, this is perfect. Like, this is just perfect for the series. And it's not perfect for a first film, and it's not perfect for a last film. It's perfect for, we're like 3 films in. You can get away with this. This is very clever. First of all, the thing, the MacGuffin, the atomic bio whatever thing is called the rabbit's foot. It's just the rabbit's foot. It's a code name. They don't explain what's going on. It's just, we got to get the rabbit's foot, or if they get the rabbit's foot, they're going to be able to yada yada yada. It's so masterfully like glossed over in a way that the audience knows the game. If you're going to see Mission Impossible 3 and you don't know what the game is, like, this is Ethan Hunt, this is his crew, this is how it works. And it was so masterfully done through the movie that, like, here's the thing. This guy's the bad guy. This is the thing we have to get from him. We'll do anything we have to do to get there. J.J. Abrams' mystery box is so great. So the fact that they just, if you watched the movie and it ended and I went, okay, hey, what was that rabbit's foot thing? You would have no idea. You would just, what? Yeah, I don't know. And it's like, but you were really enticed in the whole movie, right? Yeah, absolutely. But you don't know what it does. No, I have no idea. And the other thing is, 2 movies now, what Ethan Hunt, he runs. He's very smart. He's going to find a way around this. And how he's going to get in the building is through the roof. So the scene where they have to get into the building to get the rabbit's foot, the fact that he goes in and it cuts away and it does not show what Ethan Hunt does in any way, shape, or form. It's 2 guys in a van or whatever the hell's going on, and then he's just parachuting out of the side of a building, breaks through the glass, and like parachutes down the street, and it cuts that all out entirely, is genius. Because we've seen that in 2 other movies, and we expect that that's how he tackles all these problems. I don't need to waste time in the movie seeing that. And I almost would bet money J.J. Abrams said exactly what I just said. Is they were in the writer's room and they're like, okay, he's going to come in through here and they're going to have this whole scene. They did that in the second one. Okay, well, it'll be a little more elaborate. They did that in the first one. Okay, well, did he get the thing in both? Yeah, he got the thing in both the movies. So he's going to get the thing now, too. We don't have to show that. He just comes out of the building. Done. Genius. Absolutely genius. I loved Mission Impossible 3 for the knowing what the audience should know. Too many movies will feed me, spoon feed me in a way. And that's what this was I'm going to talk about this when I get to another one of the movies, but Mission Impossible is about, setting up what the plan is, showing me what's supposed to happen, and then the thing that goes wrong that affects that, how they overcome it. And this was so perfect about not going overly into that every step of the way. There were moments where it's like, oh, we're going to kidnap him here, and we're going to, the face recognition, and, and then the voice recorder thing, they weren't ready. And that is such a tense and great scene. So, again, I didn't say this about Mission Impossible 2. Mission Impossible 2 did a great job reusing the tech that they used in the first one in new and interesting ways. Um, when the henchman, you know, says something like, "Oh yeah, I broke Ethan Hunt's jaw" or whatever, but like it is Ethan Hunt. He's face swapped himself with the henchman. Like that is such a tense and awesome scene. And when you haven't watched 8 of these movies, it pulls the rug out from under you. It's great. So in Mission Impossible 3, and let's give some credit. Philip Seymour Hoffman, okay. Just what a great actor. And when he's in, okay. Tom Cruise and Philip Seymour Hoffman in the back of an air carrier. Like, one is just like, where's the rabbit's foot? What is it used for? He's like, not phased at all. Do you have a girlfriend, a wife, children, a job? What do you do? I'm going to find you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill her in front of you. I'm going to kill you in front of her. Whatever he says. It's just so like, oh, it gives you chills. Like, Philip Seymour Hoffman is, I think this is why it's relevant, is when you watch Mission Impossible 1, you're like, oh, espionage, oh, this is, and if you watched it today, it's 2024. That kind of espionage stuff doesn't go on that way. I'm sure there's stuff I don't know about in the world, but it doesn't play out the way it did in that movie. And it doesn't play out the way it does in Mission Impossible 2. There's nobody running 2 motorcycles into each other. And, when you watch Mission Impossible 3, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman made a timeless role in, is it Davian? Whatever his character's name is timeless in the way that that guy's the villain. He's not overly athletic. And this is Ghost Protocol. All the problems I had with that was they tried to make this guy who was like everything and he was nothing. Um, Philip Seymour Hoffman was direct. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was probably smarter than the protagonist. But he also was believable. Like, Philip Seymour Hoffman wasn't like this Dwayne the Rock Johnson person. He was just some guy who had a lot of resources, and he was ruthless. And clearly he'd done some things in the past that people believe that he was ruthless. And yeah. And if I'm being really clear, over here are notes about each movie, and I put, small paragraph or so, just to bullet point stuff. But I will say that Mission Impossible 3 just says MI3, Rabbit's Foot, Philip Seymour Hoffman, J.J. Abrams. That's it. So it was really just realizing what the formula was and skipping the parts that we could just put in there. We didn't need to know how Ethan Hunt got the thing out of the building. There was no stake, no tension. He was going to go in there and get it. Cool. Plot point, move on. I think that was such a expert director's note. I could almost tell you that the script probably at some point had this elaborate scene that they just said, it was just, and the studio probably was like, hell yeah, green light. It was a waste of money, waste of time, waste of dialogue, waste of storytelling. Like, just cut through this. Show him get in the building, show him get out of the building. We've seen him do it 2 other times. If you've seen this movie for the first time and you're like, what the fuck? Then it's funny and awkward and you don't get the joke. But yeah, I don't know. So we'll say cheers to Mission Impossible 3. So, if you're playing along, you might know what's about to happen. The second best Mission Impossible movie is Mission Impossible, the original. And I already referenced a lot of this, so it's going to be like retreading, but it sets up the hey, here's the plan. That's the whole structure for the series, is like opening, inciting incident, yada yada yada. Hey, I'm going to gather a team. It's your mission if you choose to accept it. Okay, we gather the team. What are we going to do? We're going to do this. And then they show it. And then before they get there, something happens. And then when they get there, something happens. Now they have to overcome these two things. How are they going to do it? That's the rest of the movie. So it sets all of that up, and it's brilliant. And part of the brilliance of it, you know, I don't know when I first saw this movie, but I definitely saw Mission Impossible before I saw the second one. And there's a lot of series like this. Like, I love the Saw movie series, but I didn't watch the first one first. I think I'm not big on like blood and guts and stuff, and so I watched the second one, which was arguably worse with the blood and guts. It got worse and worse and worse. But it's like, oh, that was great. I went and saw the first one. I was like, oh, that was so much better. But I saw this one and I was like, oh God, like when I was a kid, I'd watch like Twilight Zone and Mission Impossible and old shit with my grandmother on like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. They'd have all these like reruns. And yeah, I don't know, man. Like, they just did such a good job at capturing what Mission Impossible was as a series, turning it into a movie. The style of Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma, if you've never seen Blowout, and okay, if you've never heard of Brian De Palma, I'll just say Scarface and The Untouchables, and watch Blowout. Like those three movies, his style, shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I think that Mission Impossible, arguably a better movie, better executed movie than Scarface. Untouchables, okay, maybe that wins over, but Blowout's great too. These are four of his best movies, man. This guy really knows what the hell he's doing. They put him in charge of this. He kills it. You get somebody like Jon Voight, who, the Jim Phelps role is like iconic, but now to put the twist in, like, oh, this guy's not good anymore, and you have Midnight Cowboy, Runaway Train, like, come on, man, Jon Voight. That's the movie Anaconda. Like, the guy is he's got a villainous side, but he did the like prim and proper, and Ethan, it was so good. And the reveal with the glasses is, hey Jim, never. Oh, I love that movie. And then just the icing on the cake's like Jean Reno. Come on, man. Leon the Professional, so great. Um, Everything else, Emilio Estevez, Emanuela, the French lead, who, maybe I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but the woman in the film is such a great actress, and I don't know anything American that she's done, but she had a lot of French films she was in, and yeah, dude. Oh, dude. Okay, hold on. Side note: if you like Leon the Professional and you like films like Mission Impossible or Heat or anything like that, um, Jean Reno was in a movie called Ronin. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it. I'm just going to say Ronin has a lot of great actors, and it's called Ronin, and you should go watch it. So there's that. But yeah, the original Mission Impossible movie was great. It just was like it's one of those things where I don't have a good example. Maybe Back to the Future is a good example. It's really not. I'm looking for a film series where you could say, hey, you should watch this film series. And I go, oh, I gotta go watch the first one? And you go, well, you're gonna want to watch the first one, but you could really jump in at this point. And for what it's worth, it's kind of painful for people in 2024 for me to go, yeah, go watch this old movie, Mission Impossible. It just, it's dated. Like, Tom Cruise is not that age. I think people would be just like, oh, Tom Cruise, the guy that jumped on Oprah's couch. Like, I don't know. It's worth it, but I don't, I guess that's my segue to the original Mission Impossible is the second best Mission Impossible movie. The best Mission Impossible movie, hands down, bar none, no exceptions. Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation. Period. Done. That's it. The book ending of I'm going to put you in a box. So fucking perfect. This movie, I don't want to spoil things. Just know that the way it starts is so great. I'd have to say it this way, is the marketing really, really, really sold it. And so if you just watch this whole hour long bullshit, me talking about Mission Impossible movies, I really want you to know that, that you shouldn't look into any of this stuff. You should just start watching the movies from the beginning. If you don't start from the beginning, start from 5, and it'll make you want to watch 6, and you'll have to go back. So if you watch 5, don't look at anything. Because what they did was they reused the villain from 5 into 6. And that's bad, because the big thing that Mission Impossible 5 had going for it, Rogue Nation, was so great because it starts in just some random ass guy, and I know who the actor is, but in the marketing, he's not in the marketing at all. Not even for a second. They don't say who he is. They don't put the actor's name. They don't say anything, so I'm not going to do it. But it's just Tom Cruise is doing a thing, and he's getting a mission, and then it's kind of like Mission Impossible 3, where it subverts. You're like, oh, I know the game. He's going to get this thing. It's going to give him a mission. It's going to self-destruct. And while he's listening to it, it's not from the Impossible Mission. It's from the bad guys. And you're like, oh, wait, what? He walked into a trap, and he watches a guy kill a woman. And he's like, oh, this is the villain. And so you just learned that like I did. And it's kind of what happens in Mission Impossible 1, but in Mission Impossible 1, the villain's revealed later in the movie. Here it's revealed up front, but you don't know who this is. You have no idea who this guy is. You don't who that's a famous actor, I think. And then you're just okay, we'll figure that out. And so it's really good storytelling. With that said, maybe I should say less. Like, it is easily the best storytelling movie Mission Impossible does. The other reason it's great is the opening scene, and this is kind of where I want to end this, is two huge things that movies screw up on the daily, absolutely all the time. Screw up, screw up, screw up, is the marketing and the opening scene. So for a franchise that's 4 movies in, now we're watching the 5th movie, are you banking on, I've watched 3 2 to 2.5 hour movies, banking on that I've watched 4 3 hour, 2 hour, hour and a half movies? Like, maybe not. And I think that's why Rogue Nation's at the top for me, is they didn't assume you knew anything. The movie started with, Ethan Hunt's doing a thing, and he's talking to somebody, and you're like, wait, what? He's talking to, okay. Oh, here's Ving Rhames. He's okay. Haven't seen any other movies, but I know he's one of the characters. Cool. Oh, what? He's talking to Simon Pegg. Talking to Simon Pegg. Oh, Jeremy Renner. Like, whatever. It reintroduces. It's almost like the movies. It does this. It's like, you know, this guy walks up and just Jason Statham, he's this guy. And then Bill Nye, he's this guy. And Brad Pitt, he's this guy. Just flashes the name of the character on the screen. I'm referencing Snatch, but like that's not what this was. It didn't go, and Tom Cruise is Ethan Hunt, or Austin Powers, Mike Myers is whatever. It doesn't do that. It does that without the text, and it's just like, here's Ethan Hunt and he does this. Here's Ving Rhames and he does this. Here's Simon Pegg and he does this. But they don't introduce it that way. It's just they're doing a mission, and you as the audience, you're seeing one piece at a time get revealed, and then all of a sudden, the goal is Ethan Hunt gets into a plane. He's on the side of the plane takes off. So you see him doing a super physical thing, machismo bullshit, minimal CGI, and if you watch the behind the scenes, like, it's incredible that Tom Cruise did all these things. And it's just the team building of these 3 guys, 4 guys, whatever. This is the mission, and it was an impossible mission, but they got it done. And if you go back and watch the trailer for Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation, the trailer for this movie is almost entirely the first 15 minutes of the movie, where he's trying to get into a plane, he's jumping out of a plane, he's on the side of a plane. It's this whole scene broken down into some randomized shots, and there's a few other things that they throw in there, but it's almost entirely this scene. And then you watch the movie, and first person in the theater, first night, and you're 15 minutes go by and you go, oh wait, what the fuck else is gonna happen? That was the trailer, it's over. And that's, and timing in the world, I'm sure at the time there were a million trailers that would show you the ending shot in the trailer, and when you'd get there you'd go, oh, okay. I mean, this is a stupid reference, but I'm going to say there's in the trailer for one of the Ant-Man movies, there's a giant ant playing a drum set, and that ends up being the stinger after the credits. And I can't tell you how, like, physically angry I was that I sat, and maybe I had to use the restroom, maybe I just wanted to get home and go to bed, but I sat after the movie to watch the stinger thing, and it was something they showed in the trailer, and I was just like, what the hell? So for this, the marketing was perfect. There was not better marketing than this. Perfect marketing for Mission Impossible 5. So, yeah. There's also a level of, hear me out, Rogue Nation, something you could take to the bank. I put at the top of my list, came out after Ghost Protocol, that I put at the bottom of my list. So maybe I was jaded and I thought, wow, this is my favorite film franchise. 3 movies were great. They really shouldn't have made a 4th movie. It was awful. And they made a 5th movie, and I went, oh God, I'm nervous. Really low expectations. That last movie sucked. Saw the movie, 20 out of 10. So yeah, I'll cheers Mission Impossible 5. Rogue Nation, character of Ilsa Faust. I honestly, the other thing, I don't think I said this anywhere in here, was Michelle Monaghan, man. Just, they don't give her much to do. One of my problems with Fallout, maybe. I don't know. They give her some stuff to do in the 3rd movie, but Michelle Monaghan just kills it as, like, oh yeah, I fell in love with this guy, and he works for the Department of Highways or whatever the hell his bullshit lie is. Then she finds out what he does for a living, and he's like, yeah, okay, like, oof. Just great actress. If you've ever seen True Detective, just great actress. But yeah, man, that's maybe you do the recap. I recap it and I say, until further notice, Mission Impossible 8, Final Reckoning. Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol, trash. Mission Impossible 6, Fallout. Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning. MI2, MI3, MI1, Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation is the best movie. Um, yeah, and I think too that there's a behind the scenes. I'll end it with this. There's a behind the scenes of, I think they were interviewing Tom Cruise. Maybe they were interviewing other people and they were referencing Tom Cruise. But this is an actor who's been in a lot of movies. And so he brings something to the table that maybe your director or your producers don't see because he's in it and his critique is different. And something that he said that really, really helped this movie out was, I think Fallout was one of my complaints that it just ended over and over and over. So, um, Rogue Nation, that was the producer and the test audience's feedback was that, man, this movie just keeps ending. And Tom Cruise said, well, you keep doing the like little musical sting, like the, whatever happens when something resolves, you keep doing that. Just don't do that. Just play the music, draw it out through this whole last 15 to 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Just the music doesn't stop. It's tension. It's just going and it might build and shift and whatever. But the music never stops. Never whatever. And it's so genius because you rewatch the movie with that knowledge. And then you get even a better thing of like something I loved about James Bond movies was there was, so many James Bond movies where, okay, the main villain and you fight the main villain, the movie's over. But sometimes you fight the main villain, but he was the mental guy, So like the audience wants to see you beat the hell out of somebody. So then okay, Henry Cavill's not the main villain, but we're gonna fight him. Okay, cool. I think that's what I loved about Rogue Nation. The main villain was both of them. He had to be smarter than the main villain, which I'm not going to ruin this, but there's a negotiation at a table that is like probably the best you've ever seen. And they use the bullshit of like stopping a timer at the last second, like you see in all these movies. I mean, that's a Mission Impossible thing, I'm sure, but it was executed so perfectly here where he played on this guy's emotion and his mental state and the mentalism of like I know more facts about a thing, and he won out on that, and then he still fights him physically. And again, the bow tie they put on this is just perfect. It's like, hey, it's the criticism I think I have right now of Dead Reckoning, not knowing how it officially is going to end with Final Reckoning, knowing that these are the movie was marketed as part one and then they erased that. So it was going to be part one and part two, right? Mission Impossible Rogue Nation was never supposed to be part one, but then they come out with Fallout, and it really does feel like the shitty second half of this. It was so perfect. When Rogue Nation ended, they could have never made another Mission Impossible movie, and I would have been satisfied. It was so, so good of an ending. And so I say that, man. It's just so good. The storytelling, the villain was, oh my god, like I'm specifically leaving it out because I don't want to overpraise, because I think one of the best parts of it was, you watch the trailer for Mission Impossible 1 and 2, you see John Boy, you see Doug Ray Scott. These are great actors. They're great villains. Philip Seymour Hoffman was huge, huge part. He might have been in the trailer for more screen time than Tom Cruise was in the trailer. The selling point, right? Because you already know Tom Cruise is gonna be in the movie. Tom Cruise has more screen time than anybody in the movie, but in the trailer. So with Mission Impossible 5, the villain wasn't part of it. And he was like Dougray Scott's character on crack. Like, he was perfect. It was such a perfect casting. Perfect execution. So good. And then they like undid the knot into Fallout, and Fallout kind of sucked for it. Yeah, Fallout would have been a better movie if they just made Henry Cavill the main villain, and they kind of retreaded a little bit of the Mission Impossible 1 plot. Like, hey, here's a CIA agent who he's on your side and he's trying to help you find the villain, but he is the villain, you know? Would have been better. But yeah, um, I don't know. This was something different. This was me doing a ranking. I feel like there were a number of things I brought up in here that I'll talk about in a different video, but at the end of the day, the goal here is to connect people, and gather. And I don't know, what do you think I was wrong about today? That would be a great thing to put in the comments, because this is probably, I'm going to telegraph this. When I get people commenting, this video will be the one that I'm the most interactive with in the comments, because I also plan on doing an update. I'll make a short, like a YouTube short, after I watch the movie, Final Reckoning, and then I'll probably wait a year so that I can watch it in the theater, watch it on video, and then watch all the movies, and then I'll do another ranking. But yeah, okay. Hey, man. If you're along for the ride, like and subscribe.